Alrighty, let's kick it off. Nothing like an early start. Everyone see that WIA logo okay? Just Peter, see it? Just like, yep, all good. Okay, thank you. Yeah, because okay, now I've got the team screen back. All right, so just by way of introduction, my name's Peter, VK Fourier. I'm one of the board members for the Wallace Institute of Australia. Also acknowledging we've got Angelo, VK2 and WT, the club's coordinator for WIA, on board as well. Probably should have called you beforehand, sorry. Got Lee Moyle, Vice President, VK3GK. We've got the Secretary of WIA, Peter Clee, VK8ZZ, and also Chris, VK3FY. Is it all we got for roll call for directors? I think I'm not going to run through introductions for every single club that's online. It's going to take us forever. But just firstly, thank you very much for joining us tonight, this afternoon, for this briefing sessions. The reason for these sessions is when we did the insurance update for clubs and other interested parties, I asked after the session whether a regular catch-up with club presidents, secretaries would be a good idea, and everyone said, that's a great idea. So this is the first one. So we'll see how it goes. It's a bit of a, my camera's frozen. I'll just restart that. We're going to make this a regular occurrence, and depending on your feedback. So what we're going to go through tonight was the class license, the changes coming up for assessments and assessors, what's on the agenda for World Radio Conference 23, and our upcoming meeting with the NZ ART board. That's not, the discussion is not limited to that. It's just a few points I thought would be pertinent for the moment, particularly the class license and the assessor stuff, because there's been quite a bit of movement in that in the last few months, as you may not know. So we're not sure whether your assessors and your clubs have given you an update, because all the assessors have been given an update from the ACMA. But I thought we'd just go quickly through a few things, particularly what the board or what the committees in the WA responded to for the ACMA consultation. So everyone cool with that? So I'm just going to stop presenting that, and I'm going to bring up our response to
everyone should have got a copy of that today.
Yep. Now, can you see that document, or did I stop sharing?
No, can't see that.
I think you stopped sharing.
You stopped sharing. That's not the right thing to do, is it? All right. So I'm just going to briefly run through this response.
Got it.
Yeah, beauty. I'm going to now. I know a number of people on this presentation have already done their own responses. So Hayden VK7HH told me he's put his own response in. They closed yesterday, so it's a bit of a moot point about what you do now, of course. But hopefully there's been some good responses from amateurs throughout Australia. So this is what we did. Thanks. We'd like to acknowledge the Education Committee and the Spectrum Strategy Committee for putting this together. We think it's pretty well put together. We endorsed it as a board for it to go to the ACMA yesterday before closing. So that the main things that we questioned were, this 50K limit for remote assessments. We think that's probably a bit limiting for people, particularly people who can't get around or don't have access to a venue. So we've asked them, how do we clarify this 50K limit? If that basically that means if you live within 50 Ks of an assessor, you're not entitled to a remote assessment at all. And we think that's probably a little limiting. So we've questioned that. We brought up to the online assessment system. So for those who have done the American exams and the RSGB exams, you've experienced the online portal. The way they do that, it's bloody fantastic. And before the WA lost the exam service, we were moving toward an online system, but we never got a chance to implement that, and the AMC flat refused to do it too. And of course, they're now out of the picture. The ACMA are not doing it initially, but we think we can probably talk them around to allowing our online system once maybe they're all settled down and got their systems and processes in place. My camera's frozen again. Not that matters because my ugly mug isn't all that great. All right. So in terms of the accreditation for assessors, we didn't have any feedback on that. That was fairly normal. Like the only accreditation that an assessor needs is if they're going to be a level 3 assessor doing remote assessments. We've got no issue with that still. So that requires some sort of educational qualifications like train the trainer or Cert 4 in training and assessment. Then the accredited assessment guidelines, we had a little bit of questions about venues. So what the ACMA has stipulated, it has to be at a club premise. It can't be at a private house. And what happens when an assessor needs to use a hall that's up for rent? How do they pass that cost along? Because they've been explicitly saying that we, as assessors, cannot charge for anything at all, full stop. So we just wanted to clarify that, okay, if that's the case, how do we, and for people who are living in regional areas where they may not have maybe only one person, an individual's house seems to be reasonable. So we're sort of just questioning about, how that happens and what's the practical way forward. RPL, we had a bit of, the education committee have got a bit of experience with this, with assessment stuff, and we, the RPL stuff's always a bit tricky for us, like there's nothing really that fits in exactly to what an amateur license is. So we're just saying, okay, we need to just have a bit of a documented process on how that happens to make sure it's clear. If somebody does want to do the RPL process, exactly what do they need to do? Because at the moment it can be a bit rubbery. I'm going to turn my camera off. The other thing that was important to us was the HARIC, making sure that that people who are using overseas qualifications, that they are HARIC, and that we're going to try and make sure our assessments or our licenses are HARIC compatible as well, so that people travelling have no issue using a VK license where there's a mutual recognition. So the other thing is that we were aware that when the AMC took over, that a few assessors dropped off. Like a few of the assessors didn't take on the AMC role, a volunteer role. And we just like to make sure that those who felt a little left out, like I met a few of them who didn't bother, who didn't agree with it, or just couldn't be bothered, or the AMC missed them, and they just couldn't be bothered becoming assessor. We're just going to make sure they've got the opportunity to be involved with the new regime. And fees and charges. This is a good one. So it's an assessment cost rather than being a cost recovery. So we're just asking for clarification on exactly what that is. What else was there? Oh yeah, this is the transition from pro rata. So if someone pays a license fee now, do they get some money back when the class license is due to come in February next year? So that's not clear at the moment. I've basically said to people, how do I renew? And I said, well, just pay your money, and hopefully, the extra tax you paid, because it's tax, should be returned to you, because it's going to cost them a lot to do those refunds. But anyway, hello, who's got an FM repeater on? All right, so the other good one, which was a good pickup by the Spectrum Strategy Committee, was the club stations. So how does that work in a class license? And so what ACMA indicated is that there'd be no licenses or call signs issued to clubs, because it has to be, for a class license, it has to be a human being, not an entity. So we're just asking, okay, what does it actually mean? And who's able to use the club station? If there's a club station, how's that licensed? How is that registered? And that's about it. On the whole, I think the board were pretty happy with what the ACMA are doing. It was a huge surprise to us, of course, about how the AMC were dropping the assessment stuff. but it's not catastrophic. It's sort of yeah. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll let people unmute themselves if they've got any questions or queries about that before we move on to the next one. Oh, acknowledging Scott 2 VK3KJ, the president has joined.
Thanks, Peter.
All right.
Sorry, it's a few minutes late.
That's all right. We've all got jobs.
Welcome to all the presidents.
All right. So that's that one. That's a very quick run through our response. And just a bit of revision. Like I'm sure you're all aware of this, but you know, Haraleo assessors can now mark exams. We'll be able to mark exams when you change over, which is great. As an assessor myself, I really hated just being a glorified envelope licker like the marine license. So it's great that the ACMA are going to let us mark the exams and give immediate feedback back to the candidate. That's brilliant for me. It looks like we're going to be allowed one assessor per 5 candidates. Now, a few of us have got a bit of an issue with that. Like we liked having 2 assessors present during the assessment process to avoid any possible collusion or cheating, but ACMA seemed quite okay with 1 assessor. Personally, if I'm going to be running an assessment, I'm going to have 1 assessor anyway, just to cover my ass. That's just me personally. As you saw, we're going to be challenging the 50K condition for remote assessments. We don't think that's quite perfect, but I'll be looking forward to your thoughts on that when we open it for open discussion. And I mentioned this before about private houses for exams. I think in the regional areas or for clubs that are less resourced and don't have permanent premises, we think that's a bit challenging for some assessors to do that assessment. And like I said before, there were some assessors that dropped off the system, so hopefully they can choose to be an ACMA assessor automatically. And
Peter, there's a
online
question
assessments.
a question from VK4EU Wayne.
I'll take Wayne first, then Greg after him.
Yep.
Yeah, be good. Thanks very much. The club station setup, that it still seems to be up in there. There's nothing on that yet.
No, we haven't got any feedback. Well, the consultation's only closed like yesterday afternoon, so we'll
Right.
be looking forward to the responses they give us. But it's going to take a bit of time for them to churn through all the responses. We don't know exactly how many they've got, but I imagine it'd be quite a few. Greg?
Better believe it. Yeah.
Yeah. Greg?
All right. Good. Thank you.
Welcoming Greg, former president. You're on mute, Greg.
Now, not on mute, hopefully. I just, in terms of 2.2, I think the concern expressed there is fairly soft in terms of the online system being the only system. I think the points raised are valid, but it actually leads to discriminatory practice, basically.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll just have to find out how that pans out.
Not making a point that it was like basically very soft in terms of what the issue is, and in fact the question mark at the end shouldn't be there. I did point out I have no input to this prior. On the single assessor, I'd also like to reinforce that I think that's a reversion to a prior discarded model that had serious failings, and it's a risk for the exam organisers and also for the assessor and the candidates. So I'd like to reinforce that point.
Yep, I agree with you, Greg, and that's a personal concern I have as well, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm just saying that it doesn't go anywhere near enough to cover the risks that are there.
Yep.
There's also the insurance issue that doesn't seem to be covered. Liability insurance.
Yep. Well, unfortunately, that submission's now gone in, so horse is bolted. So
no, the horse has never bolted on these. That basically have, with my experience with ACMA, it's fine to send in clarifying points.
Okay, we'll take that as a good comment. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, I haven't finished.
Oh.
And my final point, which I've never moved from, I disagree that a class license is an appropriate use case, given ACMA's own description, which is documented as suited to non-technical, non-sophisticated users. I'll make that as a comment. And getting down to 5.1, that's further evidence of the poor fit. Like to deal with the club license as the poor fit of the class, the use case of the class license. Anyway, that's it from me on this one.
All right. Thanks, Greg. So just moving on quickly now to the World Radio Conference 23. The WIA attended the prep conference in August, which was held in Brisbane. So myself went there as an observer, and we had Peter Picorne and Dale Hughes as delegates for the Wireless Institute of Australia, and also Dale was there to represent amateurs for Australia for the Department of Communications. So it was really fascinating to be in the meeting where they were talking about 23 centimetres, and Dale was talking on behalf of the Department of Communications. So pretty impressive. The two main things that are going to be, the main thing that's going to be discussed at WRC that concerns us amateurs is the 23 centimetre radio regulation review proposed by Region 2. So that's the EU basically. So a number of years ago, this all came about a number of years ago, where there was a few reports of interference to a Galileo radio location satellite downlink. So that's the European equivalent of GPS, or similar to the Chinese Beidou system and the Russian GLONASS. So a few reports of interference at 1296, and there was mainly the EMEs. They were squirting lots of power up onto the moon to bounce off, and the operator of that constellation has said we need to change the regulations to accommodate to protect that service. The Region 3 prep group arrived at a no change for the as a common position. So basically that means from a Region 3 perspective, that they're not proposing any changes to amateur access to 23 centimetres, which is great. That's awesome. So we've got a common position from all Region 3 member countries, which is fantastic. But that doesn't mean the fight's over. We've still got to get Region 1 and Region 2 to agree to it at WRC in November, and that's happening in Dubai this year. So we're sending Peter Picorne and Dale Hughes to represent the IRAU Region 3 as well as the WIA, effectively all amateurs in this region, to fight for that allocation. There's a few other bits and pieces too with other microwave bands, which most people, unlike me, probably other than me, who do microwave stuff. So the ongoing threat to 3 gigs has happened in Australia, where we've pretty much lost all access for 3.4 gigs up because of NBN fixed wireless. And this is where I need to, for those who've received my presentation about what the WIA does in the last few months, I've made a mistake on that presentation about ZLs losing complete access to 3 gigs. That's incorrect. Thank you, Hayden, VK7HH, for chasing that one down. So that ZLs have not lost access to 3 gigs. They can still use parts of 3 gigs okay, on a non-interference basis, again, secondary like we are in Australia. So any questions on WRC? Like, that's a really important thing for us to be at. Look, if we're not at the table, we're not defending our spectrum. So this is what your money, your members' money is paying for, to make sure that we're there at the table, at a national table. Got a couple of hands. Oh, Greg, you again. I'll take you first.
Just unmute. Just a clarification on the access to the 23 centimetre band. That started at the last WRC. You'll find all the regions will be supporting the same position. The thing is to whether the member countries, there's actually enough substantive support basically from the member countries. This proposal was originally put up by the French, basically.
Yeah. So the WRC cycle, just for the people that don't know, is like a 5 to 8 year cycle to get any changes to the ITU radio regulations agreed to, because every one of the 183 member countries has to agree and have a common position for any change to radio regulations. So it's incredibly hard to change. It takes a long time if any changes are made. So what Greg's alluding to is that this was brought up the last WRC, which was that 4 years ago now, Greg, you think? Was it probably 4 years ago?
19.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And, there was also a similar one which has been put to bed for the 2 metre band.
Yeah.
But it was raised, I believe, as a smoke screen for the 23 centimetre one. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that whilst the radio amateurs do have a voice in the WRC owning the amateur sector, we're not a primary user in that band, and therefore relies on, I guess, a gentleman's agreement to maintain shared use.
So just reiterating, Region 3 APG arrived at no change, so amateurs maintain secondary for 23 centimetres in Region 3. So hopefully they can arrive at a composition for Region 1, Region 2 as well at WRC. So if we maintain secondary, we still have access to it.
No, I guess what I'm saying is that won't be enough to protect the member nations. And as I said, the other regions are already on side.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough from me.
Well, thank you, Greg. Wayne, Vico, for you.
You're muted, Wayne.
Okay, I'm going to move on. We'll have plenty of time for discussion afterwards, which is now. So I'm going to stop presenting that. So that was basically it. I didn't want to make this a big, long, open-winded discussion, focusing on who you are and stuff like that. But just want to make sure we keep an open line of communications with the clubs where we can, and make sure that the institute is supporting the clubs as much as we can. And if you've got any ideas about how we can support you better, then please let us know, either through Angelo or myself or any members of the board. Angelo, you got anything to add for the moment, or you're good?
Can you hear me?
Yep, all good.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks. G'day, everyone. Not much to add, really. I think the club call sign thing, just to go back to that, I think it's a pretty big one. I'm really aware, I'm sure everyone else is aware of just how many clubs have a club call sign on those big days like John Moyle and so forth. So, but yeah, anyway, look, everything's been said that needs to be said. Look, I think I just want to add that I just think these are great to have these. I get asked quite a bit when I do contact a lot of clubs. I think I mentioned in my report last year there, Peter, there, that I get a lot of people asking me about sort of this, exactly what you guys are doing tonight. So well done.
That's right. Well, I'll involve you a little bit earlier next time, Angela. This is all a bit put together really, really quickly. Sorry.
No, it's all good, mate. It's all good. Thank you.
Who's first? Wayne, Vico, for you. You got your hand up. Okay, I'll take that as a mistake. Martin, Vico, 3FG.
Yeah, sorry, it's come back now. The recognition of the class license to some countries was going to be a difficulty with the recognition of a class license. Some won't even recognise a class license. It's got to be an apparatus license or similar. What's happening there?
So what we're hoping is that the document that we get out of the ACMA saying that we do have an authority, we do have a license, is that's going to be acceptable to other countries. So like what ZL have, they have a certificate that they can take travelling with them to say, yes, we do have a ZL call. We can have a certificate saying, yes, we do have a VK call. There'll be something tangible we can hold on to.
So is that going to be included in what we now will be called the certificate of recognition, which is replacing the certificate of proficiency?
Yes.
I am an existing amateur. For new, of course, assigned to them on the recognition certificate. Our old certificates, we don't have that call sign on our qualification, so to speak. We don't have that.
So it's a bit like the SSC grant. The SSC grant in the USA is a bit like that. It actually shows the call sign you've been assigned to, and that's a tangible document you can flash in front of people. So it'll be a similar sort of thing. We think we understand at this stage. It's not 100% clear about what ACMA are going to do. So remembering that we've got till February 2024 till we get this actually in place. So there's quite a bit of work for the ACMA to do in between now and then. That's all, Wayne? Cool. Martin, VK3FG, you got your hand up? Well, Martin, can you increase your transmit audio touch, please? Well, it's still pretty muffled. Everyone's having trouble?
Can't hear anything.
He's there, but don't adjust.
All right, so just quickly, just a question on notice for VK7HH. Hayden, did you still want to clarify what you got back from the RSM from New Zealand, please? And with the actual terms of access to their access to 3.4 gigs?
Yeah, sure. So I was speaking with a couple of ZL microwavers over last week, and they mentioned that they'd lost access to 3.4 gigs. And, well, sorry, no, they said that they thought they'd lost access to 3.4 gigs. However, there was some doubt about that because somebody posted it online and didn't provide any proof or any information. So looking on the RSM's website, they had all of the information on there, and it was quite clear that access was still available from 3300 to 3410. So what I did was I contacted RSM directly and asked them to confirm that, and they sent through the, what do they call it, General Amateur Radio Users License or something. They sent through 2 of those documents and said that it is correct that 3300 to 3410 is still available. So, and in actual fact, 3300 to 3400 is allocated to a bit like fixed wireless type stuff like we have here, except there's only like 3 or 4 allocations, and they're all on the South Island. So, so yeah, they were pretty clear and said it's still available. So, myth busted.
Myth busted. Thank you very much, Hayden, for clarifying that. And I'll have to fix my presentation up and say that was a furphy that we understood. Yeah, I got that same feedback from Don Wallace, who's one of the NZRT board members who I met at the APG in August in Brisbane. He said, I don't know where that came from, but it's not true. So
yeah, the good news is that we have it in writing. So that's been forwarded to a few people so that if anything did come back, then it's obviously someone from their technical division has written that, but I don't think there's going to be a problem because it's all detailed on their website. So
right, let's go for the proper season. We've got a few more records to break in that region, I reckon. So that's good. All right, Martin, do you have fix your audio up? Maybe
Okay.
That's much better. That's much better.
Oh, very good.
Yes.
Thank goodness. Good evening, all. Thanks for the session this evening, gents. Very worthwhile. I suppose from an EMDRC perspective, the committee's asked me to raise the issue of insurance, or more pointedly, the explicit exclusion of balloon flights under the insurance policy. Rather disappointing for us, given we had probably over a dozen young people engaged with the club with that activity, which has now stopped, and probably another dozen members actively involved in supporting the program. So from our perspective, it would be greatly appreciated if with the next reviews cycle that consideration be given to removing the specific exclusion under the policy for balloon flights. Any consideration or thoughts in relation to that?
I might punt that on to Scott.
Yeah, I was going to say, would you like me to take that?
Yes, please.
Look, yeah, okay. Look, thank you, Martin. Look, we have raised that, as you know, with the insurer, and you know, to be completely honest and transparent, the current underwriter does not have any appetite at all. And so, to your point, we have gathered a listing of various issues when we come around to the renewal cycle early in the year, and we'll even start negotiations with other underwriters early. So, Martin, we're hoping in the next round, and I think there will be a change of underwriter, that will be something that the new underwriter will take on board. But of course, we can't promise, Martin. Every underwriter has to assess their own risk and their appetite for risk. And obviously, unfortunately, balloons pose a risk. And it's as simple as that. But Martin, thank you for putting that on notice. We're certainly aware of it. We've captured it. And that'll be something as part of discussion with the new proposed underwriter in the future.
All right, lovely. Thanks. That's all we can ask, and appreciate you accepting or acknowledging our concerns. Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I would probably add, Martin, to it is that we were disappointed because when you start these discussions with underwriters, it's a bit like used car salesmen. And I obviously apologise in advance if there's any used car salesmen on the call, but you know, they promise the world. But when it actually comes down to the nitty gritty and you get down to the devils in the detail, of course, the response was, we don't like balloons that potentially could pose hazards to any aviation, and that is a risk we simply just can't wear. So look, you know, we were disappointed as well, Martin, as much as EMD were disappointed. And there was another couple of clubs as well, which obviously did have some balloon activities as well.
All right. Okay, well, thanks, gents. And at least it hasn't been dropped, and we'll continue fighting a good fight. See how we go.
Yep. Thanks, Martin.
Right, the other hand I can see up is Bob, VK6 POP. You're on mute, Bob.
Okay. Yeah, good evening, everybody. Just another question about that. How are the mob in Adelaide? ARIG, I think it is. They seem to be still active with their balloons.
Anybody from ARIG here? Can't see anybody for you.
We did have a registration, but I don't think they've signed in.
No.
Let me respond. I can't respond to that to tell you, Bob, that if they have gone and sought an additional policy elsewhere outside, I can certainly tell you it's not through the current underwriter. They will simply not accept it. So they're either doing one or two things. They've either got insurance elsewhere or they're doing those balloon launches without insurance, and I don't believe that would be the case. So it sounds like to me they've probably got an underwriter somewhere that is writing that policy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you certainly any club that wants to do an activity that wants to take their own risk on, that's up to you guys. John, VK4BZ, you'll go.
Okay, I think I've got the microphone going. Thank you very much, Peter. Good evening, gentlemen. Peter, this is the old hairy chestnut again. A question that's come out of our committee, one of our committee members, about we're looking at class licenses and all that sort of thing. The higher power or more power, or whatever you want to put it to that old question. Is there any, the question I was been asked to ask is, has there been any movement towards, we're all looking for, a kilowatt?
Yeah, so it's still on the table, John, and other guys, and it's still being considered by the ACMA. But unfortunately, there's a few other more important things happening at the moment that's taking their attention away from that, and that's the class license and the assessment system. So, but definitely, the ACMA recognised that we want more power for advanced licensees. And we've given a fairly strong case for why that's the case, particularly for parity. So, for example, the UK amateurs are under the Ofcom are currently reviewing 1kW for those guys, and unfortunately, the ACMA do pay a lot of attention to other regulators around the world, and not unfortunately, probably fortunately in this case for us, because we've got a pretty strong case for getting it. But time frame, can't tell you. We don't know. It's maybe Scott and Lee might be able to relate some of their last discussions with the ACMA. Did that come up in that when you talked to him last, Scott?
just taking Mike off. No, look, in the last catch up we had, which was only a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't specifically discussed, but to your earlier point, Peter, I think the current work plan of the ACMA, particularly with what they have before them at the moment to resolve, with looming deadlines approaching with obviously the transition from AMC, I would suggest it's just prioritisation at the moment and they will come back to it. But right now, Peter, class licensing and obviously the assessment framework is certainly a priority in the work plan at the moment.
Yep.
Thank you very much, John. Peter. Appreciate all of that. That's good.
So we haven't forgotten about it essentially, and we are still pushing for it. We know when we, for our regular discussions, but there's much bigger. There's another issue too that Hayden and I've come up with, and that's the charging of repeaters. They seem to want to charge per frequency at the moment, and that's not the old arrangements that we pay per so.
Yeah, no, yeah, there was clarification about that, but I didn't tell you. So
in breaking news,
yeah. No, I asked ACMA about that, and they changed something in their fee structure in the last 12 months. I can't remember what the document was, but basically somewhere along the line there was a mistake where assigned apparatus licenses, amateurs, beacons and repeaters were not being charged per TX frequency as per their guidelines. So now they've started doing that, but I need to talk to Grant Willis because apparently there was some sort of arrangement that was never going to be the case, but that's all I heard from him.
Yeah, and that's what my experience has been, is that clubs should only be paying per site, one license fee per site, which is the same license that we've been paying, not commercial rates, which is for every frequency. So for a repeater, you're paying for 2 licenses basically per year. So where you've got big repeater sites like the AR Vic and AR New South Wales run, their repeater licensing must be amazing. And I personally am taking on one with an ATV site that has a frequency pair for each microwave band as well. So I'm not looking forward to paying for that one if this current pricing scheme persists. But again, it's priorities. Greg, you're going to make this a short one?
This is a short one, but basically ACMA are completely out of line charging for amateur frequencies because the ITU classes the frequency bands as free access to amateurs.
Yeah, so we know clubs and individuals have become very accustomed to paying very little money really for the repeater sites, and they've become quite unsustainable if that to pay for every single frequency allocation.
The point is that the whole premise of charging frequency has no basis in terms of the amateur spectrum, according to the IT. So the site charge is fine, but basically once they move into frequencies, they're out on a limb and soaring on the wrong side.
Yeah. So definitely that's on Grant Willis's agenda to face, but as we said before, priorities. So we want to get this class license embedded and smooth for all of us as possible anyway.
So Pete, just on that, there are many sites, as you know, where multiple clubs have repeater frequencies on the one particular site and are probably paying, independent repeater licenses for that particular one site. Is there any thought about having a combined one site license where, say, 3 different clubs all chip in the third or whatever it might be? Because I know lots of sites where even, we've got repeaters and there are multiple clubs paying repeater licenses on the same site. So
So Chris, my response to that is that the clubs should get together and work together.
Oh, I get that.
That's my response.
I agree with you, but sometimes that doesn't always happen, does it?
Yeah. So if there's got to be politics involved, then that's up to them. That's if they want to take control of it and have control of it, that's up to them. But I would certainly would like to think I'm doing that with the Brisbane VHF group and the ATV repeater and stuff to minimise costs. So.
Sorry, Peter, just in continuing on that frequency for charge per frequency thing as well. I also had another thing which I didn't even bother following up with ACMA about, but we've got the same frequency licensed across multiple sites because we've got our simulcast system, and they charged us per site not per frequency. So they're still stuffed up there too.
Yeah, so if any clubs get that, challenge them and say that's not right. That's the only thing we can do at the moment. We can try to make that an agenda item. I think, Scott, next time we see ACMA, just to make sure that's clear. Right, who's next? Media, who that is?
Ian was next.
Sorry, I couldn't quite see what was up on the screen. Good evening, Ian, 3BUF from GGREC. Am I getting through?
Yep, all good.
Oh, good. Yeah, one of the things that had concerned me, and I mentioned it to Scott a couple of weeks ago, the ACMA had, at the same time as asking for their submission on this round, were also asking about their changes to their scientific licenses, that they're changing what they regard as scientific licenses and want to apply it to amateur radio for anyone who wants to run high power. That was something that they put through, and they were seeking some responses, I think, by the same close of session as yesterday. So I'm just wondering if anything had been discussed about that, because essentially it looks like they want to be able to apply scientific licenses to both class licenses and specifically to amateur radio frequencies, whereas they never were going to do that in the past.
Yeah, I think this was the ACMA taking the easy way out for high power allocations for amateurs, and from the WA point of view, it's a hard no, because the scientific license is not applicable for the amateur service at all.
It should be a hard no. I was just wondering if anything was put into to the ACMA about it before their deadline.
I believe so, Scott. I think
we did put something in originally, Ian, before the deadline. Can I say as well that I just raised it with the ACMA as well when we spoke the other week, and of course they said that wasn't the intent. That was the response. And also, Ian, the matter you raised around the changing of text and data on the website, remember that, how it seemed to be changing? They said that that was just a timing issue and there was no deliberate malice. They weren't deliberately trying to hide anything or change anything. It was simply just a catch-up where they were just running slightly behind with updating the website. And I think you'd gone in the day before and captured some information, but then the next day, I think you'd screenshotted again, and they claimed that was nothing more than them just catching up.
That doesn't quite sound right, because on the day that they put forward their submission or request for submissions on that, they deleted those 2 lines of text from their website, which said that scientific licenses don't apply to amateur radio frequencies or class licenses. Those 2 lines disappeared from their website at exactly the same time.
And I also, and I also got the feeling, Ian, that the people we were talking to weren't directly the people that were undertaking the work on the website. So I also got the feeling that the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. Sound familiar?
Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, I was just curious. I'm glad that something's gone in, because I think everyone across the board, from all of the club members I'd spoken to, they were horrified at the thought of class licenses being a vehicle for a high power for amateurs.
Yeah, very good.
Thanks.
Rivcom Radio Solutions. Let me introduce yourself as well. Thanks.
Under my job name, it's Danny from Riverland Radio Club. How are you? Thanks, Peter. Just a couple ones. First of all, in terms of the website not being up to date, must have been just one of those overnight rollover things where things need to catch up. You know how it goes with all of that sort of guff. Just a couple of quick ones, coming right back to some of the assessment stuff very quickly. So how will supported assessments be facilitated if they have to be done at club locations only? Has that been considered, or have I missed something there? So you've got somebody that's incapacitated and can't necessarily attend a club site to be assessed. And they're within the 50 kilometres, where do we fall?
That's exactly what we're challenging, is that notion, because of people with a disability or no transport or in a remote location. 50 k's may not seem very far, but if you're across the river or across the mountain, it may be impossible to get there. So,
Or,
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so as long as
In a wheelchair, yeah.
been considered, the one about the balloon flights I wasn't aware of, and it'd be interesting. I know our club has done some micros, so I'll be talking to them about that. I was unaware of that one. So thanks for that information. When it comes to shared sites, and I would take the point that people were talking about multiple clubs using a common site. Obviously, you gathered by my name that I'm in a commercial space as well. What's the deal in terms of amateur hardware and repeaters, etc., sharing a commercial site? Is that just left up to the commercial entity? Despite that, we would probably, as amateurs, still need to tell the ACMA that we are at site 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And are they going to want a fee for that?
Well, yeah, they'll charge us. Well, the commercial operator, will they charge a site access fee or not? It's up to them. Hopefully nothing. But yeah, the club will still have to pay for the license, the assigned license for whatever it is, for the beacon or the repeater, under their name or an individual's name, or
Yeah,
if they clubs.
If they move to site fee only, frequency fee.
Just let's be clear now, because what they're doing for a note. Just got a bit of feedback.
Hang on,
there, sorry.
I think I've got some feedback.
Yeah. Maybe if we can just everyone just mute. Maybe that's the just to make it clear is that the arrangements for the assigned license part. Hang on, I'm just going to mute all just to make sure. Now, is that any better? Okay, yep, I just muted everybody. So the arrangements for the assigned licenses is not changing. We're still going to be paying a fee for an assigned license. So that's a repeater or a beacon or a link. That apparently is not going to change. That cost recovery is still going to be there. So we still have to pay for an AP to do that assignments, and we still have to pay ACMA on a yearly basis for that license. It's just the individuals who hold the current apparatus license will be a no charge. So does that clarify it? You can take yourself off mute now. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm off again. Thanks very much. I obviously missed the point there.
Yeah. Yep. Wayne, Vico, for you, another question? All right, so I'll just pass it over to the other directors if they've got anything else they wanted to chat about that I've missed. Maybe we can chat about. So leave the floor open for a few minutes. Other than that, I think we can probably take an early mark because Bob's on the way. He's in the car, maybe on the way home from work. So we'll have to. And I haven't had dinner yet, so I'm fanging. I could eat the. But John's got a question.
Okay, you're ready for me to go now?
Yep.
Yeah, look, just this is totally off the track of everything we're talking about. Just a question. This relates to governance, etc., in our clubs. Has anybody given any consideration?
Has anybody given?
Sorry, I'm getting that echo through again, Peter. Hello.
Hello.
I'm still hearing myself.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Teams is having a bit of a fruit.
Okay. Oh, that's better. Okay, I'm good now. Look, have we given any thought to, say, providing through WIA training for new secretaries and new treasurers in how to do their jobs? I'm just thinking, again, we've had transition of those roles in our club, and I'm just wondering to allow people to get up to speed pretty quickly and seeing as all the tightening of governance and stuff that we keep things keep coming left and right, sort of asking questions, etc. Has there been any thought about being able through the WA to perhaps run webinars or discussions for treasurers and secretaries?
Well, that's a good idea. Anyone else got any comments?
I might just respond to that, John. Look, I think we're happy to take that on notice and go away and see what we can obviously find. You know, I can certainly tell you that every new director that comes on board in the WIA, they're required to undertake a governance course with the Australian Institute of Company Directors or a similar body. Some of these courses, as you know, are quite expensive in the background. So look, we'll take on notice and maybe go away and just see if we can find at least some, you know, some guidelines or some, you know, good principles, you know, short webinars that we could potentially try and do. I mean, it becomes quite difficult when you think about treasurers and financial training and God knows what, but I think we'll take it on notice and see what we can find. That's
without throwing myself under the bus when I've got so many other things going at the moment, more than happy to help try and support what we can do with that, because I think it is vital for us with governance in our clubs. Anyway, I will now mute my microphone. Thank you very much, Scott. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, we'll take that on notice. Thanks, John.
Yeah, no, and the other tricky thing with that too is that each state's club incorporation rules are a little different. So providing generic training for club treasurers may be a little tricky because the rules are slightly different between states. But thanks again, that's all good. Angelo.
Yeah, look, it's actually timely that John brings that up, because something I was going to scribble to you guys about here the next day or so was a suggestion that's been brought up by Carl, who I notice is on tonight from the Canberra club, and that is that he's made a suggestion there that perhaps some sort of site or some sort of mailing list could be created for us, for secretaries and presidents and so forth, just perhaps liaise with each other in terms of getting to understand how to do, how to perform their roles. I mean, as John points out there, a few different rules in a few different states, I guess. I've got to put my hand up and say, listen, when I come on, I'm the secretary of my club and I knew diddly squat, and it was a very steep learning curve. And I've been constantly corrected by people who are far more intelligent than me when it comes to this sort of stuff here. But I think it's a great point, and that perhaps it, I'm not sure if we want to mail something out perhaps to all clubs, all affiliated clubs there, perhaps with a mailing list, or perhaps something we can work on a little bit further down the line. But I think it's a really good point that John brings up, and perhaps, as I said, something for discussion a bit further on.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Angelo. All right, look, I sense we're probably winding up now anyway, so we're going for just over 50 minutes now. So thanks everybody so much for their time. Appreciate the board members joining as well. A few other people who looks like they're commuting as well. So on that, thanks for broadcasting on the Port Pirie ATV repeater, and we'll put the recording up in a publicly available place as soon as we can, once we extract it out of Teams and get it exported and converted and all that drama we've got to do. Hang on, we've got a couple more questions. Carl, VK1 something? Have to unmute yourself, Carl. Yep.
Oh, I wasn't sure if you threw to me. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes. Yep.
Hi. I wasn't going to mention it, Angelo. I didn't think it was appropriate just yet, but the mailing list is already up and running. If people are interested in club communication or communication between clubs for club reps and WIA, I already have it running. So I won't give details right now, but if people are interested, contact me and I'll get you on board. We've got about 6 clubs already chatting, so not that it's chatting. This isn't actually critical mass yet, so people aren't talking, but I really want to get some back channel method of people chatting between clubs to make that sort of thing happen. So, but contact me separately if you want to know more.
There you go, Angelo. Done. Tick. Thank you, Carl, very much. That's awesome to know that. That's exactly why I want to get this sort of thing happening, because things are happening in isolation and we sometimes don't know about it, and to have that communicated to all is brilliant. So yeah, very much appreciate that, Carl. Wayne, VK4EU, you and Carl's just popped up his email address in the Teams chat by the way too. Yeah. Go ahead, Wayne.
Okay. Yeah, with the supported assessments, I'm a special assessor, and it should be conveyed to the ACMA there should be absolutely no limit on the distance. There are some people that even across the road is difficulty, and you should be able to conduct the assessment in the participant's chosen place, simply because they would be unable to go. Now, that is not at all, of course, but there's some operators and some participants that would not be able to even go half a mile down the road, let alone 50 kilometres. That's a bit of a beef, a little bit of a problem with it. And with supported assessments, back to you.
Yep, we totally agree, Wayne. Absolutely agree, and we've made that point to them in our submission, and hopefully other submissions have made the same point. Scott.
Alrighty, I just thought I'd mention, Peter, a bit of initiative that the board's taken on at the moment, which everybody might be interested in. Look, there has been quite a asserted effort by various board members to actually visit various clubs. And I even know, like, for example, today, I know Peter Cleese on this call. Peter, you've been down today to Morning Peninsula in Frankston. You're going to the Old Timers lunch tomorrow. Pete, I know you've had the opportunity to catch up with many clubs up in Queensland. Pete, I think you did a range of other clubs too when you were recently travelling in New South Wales. But one of the troubles that we are struggling with a little bit is just trying to actually understand when all the different club meetings are actually happening. So we've got a bit of an initiative running in the background at the moment of actually trying to capture all of the different club nights and club events and hamfests and everything that's going on. And then when various board members are travelling, to try and get around to more clubs. I don't know if you want to add to that, Peter Clee, or to Peter Schrader, because you certainly have been two gentlemen which have been very active in visiting clubs, but it's certainly something that we want to encourage and do more of.
I'll just add too that it doesn't have to be physical. I'm happy to do this by Teams or WebEx or Zoom if it's you know, I'm constrained a little bit with work and travel. I don't travel outside the state very much for work, so unlike Scott, who's on a plane, seems to be constantly on a plane. So
yeah,
the office.
And always happy to try and, you know, Peter, and this is part of it, you know, if we can accommodate, we're always happy to accommodate. And, you know, I am one where I do travel around a lot in Australia and, you know, always happy to try and to get to a few clubs if I can, but it's just always difficult trying to know when actually things are on. So I think we're going to populate out a calendar and a bit of a listing and try and capture. So we'll probably get a communique out about this in the near future. And try and get some responses from the clubs as to when are your main club nights, and then we'll try and liaise with you, you know, when we can to catch up.
I'd just like to add there, Scott, it would be really good to for all clubs to make sure that their affiliated club listing on the WIA webpage is up to date. If you are not sure how to log on, contact Bruce and he will resend the access details. But that's actually what I use to work out who's meeting and where I can meet with them when I'm traveling with my work.
And I've got one question for all the clubs before we close, and that's one thing we're thinking of. I'll take John Harper's question first.
Yeah, g'day. Thanks everybody for the presentation and so on. Just apropos what Scott was going on about the calendar and so on. Given that we're going to a class license, will there be a turning a blind eye to clubs advertising and permitted to do that over the airwaves?
No, John, that's still expressly against the radio regulations to have a commercial return or pecuniary interest. So
yeah,
I
realise that, but you know, if a club wants to advertise, for instance, I know there are some clubs that that have a monster raffle with their field day and things like that. You know, given that we're a class licence and we're being, in my view, it's being downgraded a little bit. Is there being given any thought to that?
So, John, I think the best way to respond to that is that even though we've got a class license, it doesn't mean we're exempt from the law.
That's true. Yeah, accept that.
So, and the ACMA have been quite clear that even though that we're not paying anything for the license, there's still going to be the regulators and the band police. So if there's any interference to services, to non-amateur services from amateurs, they will take action. And similarly, if an amateur is misbehaving bad enough and there's enough evidence, they will take action. So I'll leave it up to you to make that call or not.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Wayne, VK4U.
It's put another question up with the class license in the respect of what the ACMA is going to do with us and what they've taken from us and so forth. That is the situation of interference. And I'm not about your mate down the road wiping you out because he's as wide as a barn door. I'm talking about industrial interference.
Yeah, and so as I said before,
and that
they're
is
still
a commercial entity of some sort, something rather that starts producing gross.
So Wayne, I only got about 50% of that.
I'm
But I
listening.
think I understand the. Yeah, I only got 50% of that, but I understand the intent there. Is it's just I relate to you what the ACMA told us a number of years ago is that if something's interfering with the amateur service from commercial interest, and we're secondary on the band, too bad. But if we are primary on the band, then we have a case to make a complaint. Now, the reasoning for this is pretty simple in that what the ACMA are really primarily concerned about is safety. So if somebody is interfering with the GPS system for an aircraft and they're about to collide or not land properly, that's an issue. If the police can't get somewhere or the ambulance can't get somewhere because of a radio issue and they can't get a location and stuff like that, that's an issue for them. But if somebody's button pushing on a 2-meter repeater or playing music, they're not going to worry about that so much. It's a bit like channels, a bit like UHFCB. It's going to be a little bit regulate ourselves. Having said that, we are not the police. We can't walk into people's houses and confiscate radios, and we can't. Don't throw your hands up, John. We can't. We can't. We don't. We're not policemen. We don't hold any sort of powers that way. That is the ACMA's responsibility and the federal police, and in some cases, the state police. So, unfortunately, we are secondary in a lot of bands. So, the priority for ACMA would be quite a bit lower. That's just the state. That's just how it is.
I understand that, Peter. I understand that. But what they were saying, that was what we always had. That was the system. We operate on a no interference basis. Yes, of course we do. But does that mean some commercial interest? And this is what they didn't say, that we'd be in the same class as Citizens Radio Service, where we'd have to virtually be like we're in the scientific and medical band, where we would have to accept all forms of interference and not have a call. And I think that is taking it away. It's a bit.
Well, in the case where we're primary and someone interferes with us, that's against the law. Simple as that.
So that's still in place.
Absolutely. That hasn't changed. That's still law. That's not changing.
Okay. In primary bands, I understand. In secondary bands, no. But in primary bands. Okay. Thanks very much, Peter.
No worries. Henry? Still on mute, Henry. Let's see if I can unmute you. I can't unmute you, Henry. You have to do it yourself.
Top right-hand corner on the screen.
Perhaps you can bash your question out in the chat, Henry, if you can't find the unmute button. must be frustrating. All right, so we have.
Did I have success?
There we go.
Oh,
Yep,
how about
there we
that?
go.
Finally,
Please go.
finally recognised. I have to blame Microsoft for that one. My question relates to the register of radio communication licenses we all use to look up the amateur call signs. That's a valuable tool for all sorts of reasons. Everything from finding out who the amateurs in your local area are, to when someone comes up on air, to be able to look up their call sign and see who they are and where they are is a thing that we've taken for granted for a great many years. Has there been any resolution as to where we go with a register of holders of call signs?
So as far as we know, that's going to be preserved, because amateurs are not the only users on that system. So the other commercial operators are still tracked and registered on that, as well as the assigned licenses for amateur services. So the feedback we have from the ACMA is that they're going to maintain that for all Spectrum users.
Oh, thank you very much. But that's very reassuring.
What the form of it is and how it looks, Henry, we don't know yet. Bob.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that.
Yeah, no worries. Bob? This is the last question, I think, so we can get away.
The blurb from the ACMA said that the database will be there, but it won't contain names. It'll just contain the call sign and the level of qualification for the license.
Yep. There you go. That's an answer. Well, hopefully that we might be able to make that a bit better. So I just have a quick question for all the club.
I think they're up against the Privacy Act.
Yep.
So does that mean, Bob, that they're going to do away with client ID?
Don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I didn't say.
Well, we won't have a client ID because we won't have an account with ACMA individuals. So the other question I had just briefly for clubs, one thing we're talking about is I don't know if anybody's a member of the ISGB or any other member organisation like the ARRL. As members, you get regular email communications from that organisation and their focused email lists. Do the clubs think that's a good idea? That's something the WA should be doing on a regular basis? Obviously, RASA do it quite effectively, so something that we probably should think about. Yeah, all right. So that's pretty good feedback. I knew the answer would be yes. I just thought I'd put it out there that we are desperately trying to find some resources to do that, because doing it on a regular basis is quite resource intensive. I certainly don't have the time to do it and do it well. So we've gone over time. So I do appreciate everyone's time. Thanks to the board members who joined. Thanks, Angelo, and all the club presidents who are online. I won't name you individually, but I think we'll call it a close there, and I'm going to go and get some dinner. I'm really hungry. So I guess the other question is, do we do this quarterly? Is everyone happy sort of quarterly interval? Is that sort of often enough? Right. Okay. So we'll plan for another one later this year then. So around the November time, and we'll avoid the Christmas period. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Peter.
No worries.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Scott.
Well done.
Good night,
Peter.
gentlemen.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Peter.
Thank you.
Live long and prosper.
Good night, all.
Enjoy that bourbon, John.
Cheers, everybody.
Enjoy your retirement too, Mark.
I think I'm going to go and find some dinner as well. See you, Pete.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Peter.
Everyone. Yep. Cheers.
Hey, 5 PMC testing before you go.
Got Moyle's back. Oh, you're back. You can't go, can you?
Has someone had a question?
Anybody hearing VK5 DMC?
Yeah, Roger.
Thank you very much. Just testing, trying to run the Teams with vMix.
Very good.
Incidentally, is there any video of it?
No.
Okay, we'll work on that. Thanks.
No worries. Cheers. Good night, gents.